You know the image, right? The shadowy figure, cool hood, silent blade, the person who single-handedly changes the course of history. But what if I told you that entire fantasy is, well, basically a lie? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what might just be one of history's most romanticized and flat-out miserable jobs.
Seriously, just for a second, what picture pops into your head? Some mysterious, highly trained loner from a secret order? A master of disguise who moves like a ghost through a heavily guarded castle?
Yeah, that's the Hollywood version. That's the one we all know and love.
Okay, now let's look at the reality. The myth gives us the sleek, skilled professional, when the truth is, it was probably some desperate amateur. We picture this elite, mysterious figure, but history shows they were more like a societal footnote. The job wasn't glorious and mysterious. It was thankless and unbelievably grim.
So let's really dive in and break this myth apart piece by piece. We're going to see just how much Hollywood got wrong when you put it up against actual history.
I mean, one of our sources just puts it so bluntly, you gotta love it. Being a medieval assassin seriously sucked. Simple as that. Forget any notion of glamour. This was easily one of the worst, most dangerous, and least rewarding jobs you could possibly imagine. So that begs the question, who on earth would actually take a job like this? Well, the answer is probably not who you think. Look, becoming an assassin wasn't a career choice. It wasn't something you aspired to. It was what happened when every single other door in your life had been slammed shut. This wasn't a path you chose. It was the dead end you arrived at when you had absolutely nothing left to lose.
So who were these people, really? Forget the trained elites. We're talking about desperate peasants facing starvation, disgraced soldiers with nowhere else to go, ex-thieves, pretty much anyone who was so far off the social radar that they could just disappear and no one would notice or care.
And this quote it sums it all up perfectly. It wasn't a profession, it was more like a last stop on the life went horribly wrong train. Think about it. If you had money and power, you didn't become an assassin, you hired one. And what about the benefits package? Let's just say it was lacking. There's no pension, no glory, forget about weekends off, and you can absolutely forget about a dental plan. The only motivation here was pure, unfiltered desperation.
Okay, so we know who was taking the job. But what was it actually like? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the night-to-night reality of trying to be an assassin. First things first, you have to completely erase that training montage from your brain. You know, the one with the wise old mentor and the epic flute music up on a mountain somewhere? Yeah, that didn't happen. Most assassins were just amateurs whose training was basically just getting lucky and not dying the first couple of times.
So your training regimen was pretty basic. Step 1, know which end of the knife is the pointy one. Step 2, hope really, really hard that things work out. And step 3, this is the advanced stuff. Try not to sneeze while you're hanging off a ledge. This was a job of luck, not skill.
And the pay? I mean, it had to be good, right? Well, the promise was always that nice pouch of silver. Half now, half when it's done. But the reality? Way more often than not, your client would just disappear after the target was dead. Or, even worse, they'd try to have you killed. I mean, it makes sense, right? A knife in your back is way cheaper than that final payment. Your gear wasn't any better. We're not talking about cool, custom-made weapons. Your toolkit was basically whatever you could steal or scrape together. A dagger that you hope isn't too rusty, maybe a rope for a garrote if you were feeling fancy. And poisons? Yeah, probably some sketchy concoction made from toad guts that had a 50-50 chance of working. The main feature of your gear was that it didn't make a lot of noise. So, let's see. You've got no training, terrible pay, and junk for equipment. And to top it all off, the job itself was, well, it was borderline impossible.
You have to remember, you weren't hired for the easy jobs. Nobody's paying top dollar for you to take out Jeff the sleepy candle maker. No, your targets are nobles, bishops, maybe even kings, the most protected people in the entire kingdom.
The number of things you had to get through was just insane. You're talking dozens of guards, high walls, moats, things literally called murder holes. And if you somehow get past all that, you have to deal with the gossiping servants who notice every single unfamiliar face, and the target himself, probably paranoid, with food tasters and decoy beds. It's a nightmare. And in this kind of work, with all that on the line, how many chances do you get? Just one. One slip-up, one loud footstep, one ill-timed cough, and the game is over. Because failing didn't just mean you got fired. As the source material tells us, it was a public, painful, and wildly theatrical death. Your failure wasn't just your end, it was a performance. a gruesome warning to anyone else who might get a similar idea.
But what if you did it? What if you actually pulled it off against all odds? Surely there was a payoff then, right? A reward? Well, not exactly.
Let's just look at the two options here. You fail, you die a horrible public death. You succeed, and now you have to run for your life because you are now the one loose end your powerful client needs to get rid of. You become their next liability. It's a total lose-lose situation.
So there's no celebration, no victory lap, just paranoia. A life where you can't trust anyone. Your client wants you dead, the target's family wants you dead. Success just means you've painted a giant target on your own back, and now you have to live looking over your shoulder for the rest of your short life.
And that's really the heart of it. There was no retirement plan. You didn't get to buy a quiet cottage by the sea. Assassins don't grow old and tell their grandkids stories. They just vanish. They're either caught, betrayed, or they're forced to just fade into total obscurity, running forever. And this final quote just captures the whole tragedy of it. The entire goal was to be a ghost, to be invisible. You didn't make history, you erased yourself from it. Your success was measured by how completely you could vanish from the world. In the end, the only thing you were working towards was a silence so complete no one would ever question it, because no one even remembered you were there in the first place.